Hello and welcome to the Musical Instrument Investigator. Today we're on the website of French auction portal Shares, and we're going to have a look at another auction by Vichy Auctions based in France. If you've seen any of the videos recently, you'll see that we did a Vichy auction recently that's happening on the 28th of September. They tend to do a few of them at once, and this is the one which is live on the 29th of September. This is kind of lower level stuff, 401 lots on this, 24% buyer's premium there. This is likely to be mainly French stuff, I would think, French violins and French bows, maybe some other bits, you never know. As always, like I said, this is a French auction, so bear that in mind. If you're gonna try and purchase anything, you can sign up online and stuff like that. It's fairly straightforward. Check all the terms and conditions, CITES, import, export, all the additional fees, etc. It's definitely worth doing that so that you don't get burnt. Anyway, because we've got so much stuff to do and it's getting pretty late here in the UK, I'm just gonna crack on and get on with it. So we've got a set of cello and violin stands there. Looks like they've seen better days. €20 start. Whole load of tools and tools and molds and things like that for violin, cello making, etc. €50. Oh, there's some more pictures. General kind of stuff. Doesn't look super exciting. Here's a luthier's box containing different pigments and resins. €20 is the estimate on that. Into violins. Here's a 20th century violin with a Garda label there, €50. 20th century Miracle, very standard trade instrument there, €150. Lebert violin Miracle, also standard, €300. Another 20th century Miracle, €100. Let's hope there's some other stuff here. 20th century cello there, JTL, replaced head, sound post crack, €500. German violin from the end of the 19th century, 150. There's nothing too crazy about that one. 20th century Miracle violin labelled H. Dennis, 200. Is that Viola, made around 1900. 384 length back, it's quite small, €300. German violin, late 19th century. That Hopf kind of model, €30. Violin by JTL, €600. Violin from the 20th century Eastern countries, €100. 19th century violin with a Vernaccia label there, 360 length of back, €150. It's at least fairly interesting looking. Half size Miracle violin, 150. German violin from the beginning of the 20th century, fairly standard. And violin made in the workshop of Marius Didier, Matancourt, €600. It doesn't look too bad. 20th century Miracle violin, 200. 20th century German violin, 200. And Lebert violin made in Miracle, 300. A 3/4 Miracle violin there, 50 on that. Another Lebert Humbert violin there, 400. 20th century Miracle violin, €80. Another Miracle violin, early 20th century. Interesting scroll, 200. 20th century Miracle violin, 300. Another Lebert violin there, 100. 19th century Miracle violin with the Mokotell label, 400. Late 19th century Miracle violin, Breton model, 100. Another Miracle violin there, Breton label, 200. Half size JTL, 300. Half size Miracle, 30. Violin from the workshop of Lebert Humbert, 600. And a lot of bows again. A Bausch school violin bow made around 1900. I'm looking for 200 for that. Violin bow by GATL, 300. Whole load of bows again, 80 euros. Bazar school violin bow there, 300. Load of different bows again. German school cello bow, 150 euros. A violin bow from the Bazar school. Frog and button from another bow, 300. Set of bows. Violin bow by GATL, 300 on that. Another whole load of bows. A GATL violin bow from around 1900. Looking for 200 on that. A Viola bow by FX Bazar, 300. A violin bow signed PC, 150. A Clasquin violin bow, silver mounted, in pretty bad condition, but still 300 euros. Violin bow by JTL, 150. Lebert violin bow stick, frog and button of the same period, 150. And Lebert violin bow, needing quite a bit of repair, 300. A set of bows, different sizes. Violin bow by JTL, 300. Another 3/4 Miracle violin there, 50 euros. 20th century JTL violin, 200. Violin from Eastern Europe, the late 19th century, 300. Violin Miracle, 20th century. Violin by Lebert Humbert, 400. And violin Miracle, 200. 20th century German violin, 200. 20th century Miracle violin, 300. 3/4 Miracle violin, 20. Violin by JTL, 500. Another violin by JTL, Medifino, 80. Violin Miracle, early 20th century, 200. Late 19th century violin, the Steiner label. Interesting back there, 300. Violin made in the JTL workshop, Miracle 20th century, 100. Violin from the Lebert workshop, 500. Miracle violin 20th century. Violin Miracle 20th century, 250 on that. 20th century Miracle, 300. Violin 3/4 Miracle, and 50. Violin by Didier Nicolas, made in Miracle, around 1820, 500. It's a bit more interesting. Small 20th century violin, Lucien Schmidt label, 50 there. Miracle violin, early 20th century, 250. German violin from the beginning of the 20th century, 300. Early 20th century violin, the Degani label there, 150. 20th century violin, interesting looking thing actually, 500 there with a Kolonoffi label. 20th century Miracle violin there, 150. 19th century German violin here, different restorations, 200. Violin with the label of Guarnerius there, 300. Here's a violin with a Strad label, a kind of semi-decorated one, 10 they're offering for that, so they're not too confident about that. Violin by JTL, looking for 500, that's actually a fairly nice looking one. Load of bows again. A violin bow stick of the Simon school, 200. Viola bow from the Pajot school in ironwood, 300. It's a German violin bow, €100. And a Bazar school violin bow, 300. Violin bow by Lebert, 80. 3/4 violin bow by El Morazon, 150. Violin bow by JTL, 300. German violin bow from the Bausch school. Viola bow from the Tort Pajot school there, made around 1830, snakewood, 1500 they're looking for there. Another whole load of bows there. And some more again. '20th century German violin bow with a Tubbs mark, 300. Double bass bow there in the style of Pierre Cugnot, 150. Violin bow by El Morazon, 200. Lot of 2 violin bows there by Pierre Cugnot. Modern cello bow, silver mounted, 100. Violin bow stick from the Bazar school, 150. Violin bow of Japanese production, interesting, 50. Violin bow from the workshop of J.J. Martin, 300. Miracle violin, late 19th century there, 50. German bow from the beginning of the 20th century, so German violin, 200. Miracle violin, 300. 20th century miracle violin, 100. French 18th century violin from the school of Grand Gérard, 600 euros. It's quite nice. An Eastern country's violin, damaged. '20th century miracle violin there, 200. Violin from the 20th century German school, 800 there. Violin late 19th century, 30. A Pillamore 3/4 violin made in miracle around 1830, looking for 500. 20th century miracle violin, 100. Violin by JTL, 250. Violin made in miracle at the end of the 19th century, 300. Damaged miracle violin beginning of the 19th century with the iron mark FS Jaune, 150. Quite nice varnish on that. 3/4 German cello, 20th century, 300. 3/4 miracle violin there, 100. '20th century miracle violin, 200. 20th century miracle violin, 300. Violin from the East, 50. Viola, small size, 20th century, the Paluzzi label. Kind of interesting back there, I guess. 100, could be interesting. 382, yeah, it's quite small. JTL violin there, 50. 20th century miracle violin, 200. Miracle violin from the beginning of the 20th century, 150. Half size Medafino miracle, 100. Violin, second part of the 19th century, 400. Violin 3/4 miracle, early 20th century, 100 there. 20th century miracle violin, 150. Another miracle violin, 300. 20th century miracle violin there. Violin, probably 19th century German school. That's actually a very interesting looking violin, actually. Interesting back, 358, 6 to 800. Nice varnish on that. 3/4 German bow, 50. Violin bow from the Bazaar workshop, 200. 20th century German violin bow, 150. Lebert violin bow, 150. Violin bow by Charles Louis Bazin, 400. More bundles of bows there. Violin bow by Prosper Colas, 150. Violin bow by GATL, 150. Violin bow bearing PC ironmark, 50. Violin bow by Roger Francois Lotte, 400. Lot of various bows as is. Onwards. Violin bow of the Bausch School, 200. Violin bow by CN Bazin, 150. Whole load of different bows there. Violin bow by Marc Lebert, around 1950, 600 there. Cello bow stick from the JTL workshop there, 100. Viola bow from the Bazin School, 200. Violin bow from the Bazin School, 100. Whole load of bows again. Violin bow by Marc Lebert, 300. Medafino here from Miracle, 30 euros there. 20th Century Miracle violin, 200. 20th Century Miracle violin, 300. Another 20th Century Miracle violin, 100 on that. A late 18th century violin bearing the label Matthias Thier. Table replaced, probably revarnished. Okay. Interesting looking back there. 400 they're looking for. 3/4 Miracle violin there, 100. Violin Miracle early 20th century, that's 200. 20th century Miracle, 250. 20th century Miracle, 50. 20th century violin. Oh, skipped there. It's actually fairly interesting looking. 300. Early 20th century. 50 euros. Another early 20th century violin, 100. Small size viola, probably made in Miracle in the 19th century there, 100 euros. Interesting, unfortunate crack on the back there, 385. Otherwise would have been quite nice actually. Violin Miracle, early 20th century, 100. 20th century German violin, 500 on that. 20th century Miracle violin, 150. German violin, early 20th century, 200. 20th century Miracle violin, 200. 3/4 Miracle violin, 50 on that. 20th century Miracle violin, 500. Half size Miracle violin, 20th century, that's 50. 20th century miracle violin, 100. Violin Lebert workshop there, 300. 3/4 violin miracle, 100. Miracle violin from the beginning of the 20th century, 500. 3/4 miracle violin, 100. German violin from the end of the 19th century with a Hopf label. It's that 200, it's that kind of Hopf style. Miracle violin there, 200. Violin from the countries of the East, 20th century. Interesting wood choice there, 20. A viola by Dehoog, made in London in 1977, number 1. Interesting. 500 euros there. It's actually quite nice looking viola, that. 414, that's a good size for a modern player, so that'll be interesting viola. That's nice. That'll make a nice thumbnail, I think, that viola. Some bows again, 20 euros. Double bass bow by Joseph Thomasin, 150. Violin bow from the Martin workshop there, 80. Violin bow by GHL, 150. Bazaar School violin bow stick, 300. Quarter size violin bow by El Morizot, 150. German violin bow signed HWF, 150. 20th century German violin bow, 150. Whole load of bows again, and onwards to number 5. And viola bow stick from the Pacat School, 300 they're looking for there. Whole load of different bows there. German violin bow, 100. German violin bow, circa 1930, 300. Violin bow from the Peugeot School, 100. Double bass bow by Louis Joseph Morizot, pair, 300. 20th century German violin bow, 150. German early 20th century violin bow. Violin bow from the Bazaar School, 80. More random bows again. Charles Louis Bazaar violin bow, 800. 3/4 miracle violin, 19th century. 20th century miracle violin there, Magini type, 200. Violin by JTL. Violin 3/4 miracle, 100. Violin miracle, 400. Violin 3/4 miracle. A 20th century violin there with a Jules Mercure label, 150. And a violin bearing Jean Larcher label, 300. Half-size miracle violin of the 20th century, 10 on that. Violin there with an Armando Altavilla label, 400. '20th century German violin, '20th century miracle violin. That's interesting. 200 there. Another miracle violin there, 20th century. Three-quarter miracle violin. Violin with an iron mark Quattro in Paris, 500. That's another nicer looking older French violin. Violin three-quarter miracle, 100. 20th century violin, 20th century German violin, 300. Violin three-quarter miracle, late 19th century miracle violin, Breton model, 200. 20th century German violin. It's had an interesting varnish job. Miracle violin, 20th century, 200. '20th century violin from the Lebert workshop, 300. Miracle violin for the end of the 19th century, 100. 20th century violin, 100. Another miracle violin, 150. Another miracle violin here, 200. Another miracle violin, 300. 20th century miracle violin. Early 20th century violin, 500. Back to a whole load of bows again. Bazar School bow there, 150. That's interesting. Then a violin bow from the Bazar School again, 150. 20th century German violin bow there, 150. Violin bow by Auguste Husson, 300. That's in a bit of a state. A quarter size violin bow in nickel silver, 150. A Bazar School violin bow, bone button, 100. And yep, the next one here. Let's just double check we're on the right page there. Lots of stuff here. Yep, we're on page 6 and we continue. Violin bow by L. Morizot, 200. More random bows again. Oh, I've just done something wrong there. 20th century German cello bow with a fake mark of J. Martin. German violin bow, 20. Violin bow by GATL, 200 on that. Violin bow by Morizot Frère, right, that's pretty broken, I'd say, 150. 20th century German violin, 100. Huri violin bow, taut model, 300 there. German violin bow stick, frog and button from same period, 100. Cello bow stick by L. Morizot, 150. Violin bow by JTL, 150. Violin bow by Kunio Huri, 50. German violin bow, 300. Half size Mirko violin there, 50. Mirko violin, 200. Half size Mirko, 30. 19th century Mirko violin there, 100. Another 19th century Mirko violin, branded Nicholas Ain, 500. Half size Mirko violin, 150. Mirko violin from the early 20th century, 200. Violin by Lebert Humbert, 300. Quite nice back on that one. Violin Mirko, 20th century, 20 on that. 20th century Mirko violin there, 500. Three-quarter industrial violin, so still kind of horrid things. €20, that seems way too high. Mirko violin, 20th century, 200. Another Mirko violin there, 40. 20th century Mirko violin, 200. A violin by Dominique Salazar, made in Mirko around 1820, branded D. Salazar, 400 euros. Half size violin Mirko. Violin made in the JTL workshops, 200. 19th century violin by Charles Clodeau, 150. German violin, table replaced, 50 on that. 20th century violin, Guarnerius label, half size Mirko violin, 80. Mirko violin, 20th century, 200. French violin made around 1850, 300. Amateur work here with an R. Kelashki label, 100. Well, it's quite like the scroll actually, it's quite interesting. 100 euros, also seems a bit optimistic there. 20th century Mirko violin, 300. 3/4 Mirko violin, 20th century, 100. 20th century violin, 200. 20th century violin with a Magini label. It's obviously had some weird stickers or something all over it. 20th century violin, restorations, 10 euros. A Lebert Humber violin, 400. Violin bow by Charles Nicholas Bazat, 50. Cello bow stick by Louis Thomasin, and a bit worse for wear, 100. Violin bow by GATL, 150. CN Bazat violin bow, 150. Vigneron Père Feel violin bow with a head break there. Cello bow from the Bazin School, 100. Violin bow from the workshop of Charles Louis Bazat, 100. Cello bow from the Picat School, Lebert violin bow, 80. Violin bow by GATL, 400. Some random bows again. Violin bow from the German School, 50. Bazat School violin bow, 300. German cello bow there, 100. Another GATL violin bow there, 250. Lebert violin bow, signed VJ Ferrelli, 150. Violin bow by GATL, 150. Violin bow from Louis Bazin's workshop, 100. Some random bows again. Violin bow by Charles Alfred Bazin, 600. Back to instruments, a German violin, 50 euros. A 20th century German violin, 150. German violin from the beginning of the 20th century, 300. 20th century Miracle violin, 150. 3/4 Miracle violin, 100. Violin Miracle, 150. Miracle violin from the beginning of the 20th century, 200. 3/4 violin, 60. 20th century violin decorated on the top and on the back, 20. 3/4 violin by Paul Francois Palliot, made in Miracle around 1800. 500, that's quite a nice 3/4 violin, that. A 20th century Miracle violin, 50. 20th century Miracle violin, 100. 3/4 Miracle violin, 20th century. 3/4 German violin. The Miracle violin there, 150. Another Miracle violin, 100. Another Miracle violin, Lebert Humber workshop. It's a bit nicer than some of them, 250. Half size Miracle violin, 300. Another Miracle violin there, 20. Miracle violin, early 20th century, 700. A 19th century violin, amateur work. Interesting. 30. Some curious looking thing. 20th century miracle violin, 200. Another miracle violin, 300 on that. 1/8 size miracle violin, 100. 20th century miracle violin, 450. German violin from the end of the 19th century, 200. German violin from the beginning of the 20th century, Schweitzer label, 250. Classic trade. Half-size miracle violin, 30. Contemporary Asian 7/8 violin labelled Palatino, 30. German violin from the end of the 20th century, 250. Violin bow from the Bazaar School, 50. Violin bow GATL, 150. Violin bow of the German School, 150. That looks in a bit of a state. German violin bow there, 80. Violin bow by Francois Lot around 1960, 600 to 700. That's quite a nice looking bow. German violin bow, 80. Cello bow, 3/4, RE, France. 20th century German violin bow there, 150. Violin bow by GATL, that's 50. Violin bow stick by Eugene Cuneau, 300. Violin bow by Morazon, 50. 20th century German violin bow, 50. 19th century French violin bow, 150. Lebert violin bow, signed Taut, 100. Violin bow from the Prosper Colas workshop, 100. Lebert violin bow, 150. Violin bow by JTL, 150. Cello bow from the Bazaar School, 100. And we've got a 20th century German violin bow, 50. Cello bow by Charles Nicholas Bazaar, 300. 3/4 miracle violin, 20th century. 20th century miracle violin, 250. That doesn't look very nice. Violin from the German School, 300. Half size miracle violin, that's 80. Violin miracle, early 20th century, 400. 20th century miracle violin, 200. German violin for the beginning of the 20th century, 250. Half size miracle violin, 20th century. 3/4 miracle violin. Violin from the workshop of Lebert Humbert, 400. 20th century German violin, 20. 3/4 miracle violin, 250. 20th century miracle violin, 300. half size miracle violin 100, 20th century violin GATL 200, 20th century violin from Eastern Europe 100, late 19th century miracle violin with a J's label 250, 3/4 miracle violin 20th century, modern 3/4 violin 20 euros, 20th century miracle violin 3/4 miracle violin there 30, another 3/4 miracle on 80, another 3/4 JTL 200, quite nice back on that actually, to be fair. Miracle violin 20th century, another miracle violin 20th century 40 on that one. Miracle violin 300, a Medafino violin there 50, th century miracle violin 10, 3/4 miracle 20th century 150, 20th century German violin bow 50 on that. German violin bow 100. Onto the final page. Got a French manufacturer contemporary violin bow 150. 3/4 violin bow from the school of Prosper Colas 80. Violin bow from the workshop of Charles Nicholas Bazin 150. German violin bow stick 150. 3/4 violin bow by L. Morizot. Violin bow from the Bazin school 80. Double bass bow from the Bazin school in Snakewood. Well, that's definitely seen better days there. 300. Violin bow 3/4 JTL 50. Bow from the Usha school around 1920, 150 on that one. Violin bow by GATL 150. Violin bow by Prosper Colas around 1890, 50 on that. GATL bow there 300. German violin bow there 150. Another German violin bow also 150. Bazin school violin bow 150. We've got a lot of 2 violin bows, including a school of Bazin and a German bow. I think we've lost that one a bit. 30 on that one. Then our last lot on this auction, a violin bow by Pierre Cugnot, circa 1880, 600 to 800. So there we go. Here is the Vichy Auctions catalogue for the 29th of September. I think the one previously, the one on the 28th of September, was far more interesting than this one. This one was pretty boring for the most part. A few odd things that were interesting, but nowhere near as interesting as the other one. So yeah, I'll put a link in the description as always. Thanks a lot for watching, and take care. Bye. Many thanks for tuning in to the Musical Instrument Investigator. I hope that you enjoyed the video. If you did, then please like, subscribe and turn on notifications, and watch out for the next video coming soon.